Order. Alors. It being 4:07 p.m., the House will now proceed to the consideration of Ways and Means Proceeding number 19 concerning the budget presentation. Mr. Morneau, seconded by Mr. Bryson, moves that the House approve in general the budgetary policy of the government. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Okay. Take two. Monsieur le Président, je suis heureux de prendre la parole devant la Chambre aujourd'hui pour déposer les documents budgétaires de 2018, y compris les avis de motion de voix et moyenne. Les détails concernant les mesures sont exposés dans ces documents et je demande que l'étude de ces motions soit inscrite à l'ordre du jour. Je tiens aussi à annoncer que le gouvernement déposera des mesures législatives pour exécuter les mesures de ce budget. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, last week, I spent some time with a couple of grade 6 classes from Rose Avenue Junior Public School in downtown Toronto. It's an extraordinary school. More than 85% of the students have English as their second language. They're bright, curious, and hardworking. And when they had the chance to ask me about today's budget, well, Mr. Speaker, they would have made all members of this House proud. These 10 and 11-year-old students wanted to know what our government's doing for Indigenous peoples. They asked about science and discovery, about supporting seniors, protecting nature, increasing immigration, and helping the homeless. They even asked me about Canada-US relations. What impressed me most was how forward-looking each of the questions were. Les enfants de l'école Rose Avenue et dans les écoles partout au pays se soucient de l'avenir. Ils savent que les décisions que nous prenons aujourd'hui transformeront le monde dans lequel ils grandiront. And they're looking at us to make good decisions, smart decisions, so that they can have a better opportunity to follow their dreams, find good jobs, and give back to their community. Mr. Speaker, that's what this budget is all about. It's a plan that puts people first, that invests in the things that matter most to Canadians, that builds on their hard work, and that keeps us squarely focused on their future. Budget 2018 is also a plan that respects the choice that Canadians made just a little over 2 years ago. At that time, Canadians had the opportunity to stay the course. They could stick with a government that favored cuts and a set of failed policies that produced stubborn unemployment and the worst decade of economic growth since the Great Depression. Or they could choose a more ambitious and confident approach. Canadians chose the latter. They put their trust Mr. Speaker, in a new government because they knew that we put our trust in them. We took that trust, balanced it with sound fiscal management that includes a declining debt-to-GDP ratio and gave Canadians the tools they need to succeed. Tout d'abord, nous avons haussé les impôts des plus riches afin de pouvoir les réduire pour la classe moyenne. Nous avons ensuite introduit l'allocation canadienne aux enfants pour donner aux parents à faible et à moyen revenu plus d'argent dans leur poche chaque mois pour les aider à défrayer le coût d'élever leur enfant. Et cet été, 2 ans plus tôt que prévu, nous allons nous assurer qu'elles suivent le coût de la vie. Grâce à l'allocation canadienne pour enfants, les familles reçoivent en moyenne 6 800 $ par année, libres d'impôts, pour des livres, des leçons de hockey, ou des vêtements chauds pour l'hiver. Ça veut dire qu'aujourd'hui, à peu près 300 000 enfants de moins vivent sur le seuil de la pauvreté, une réduction de 40% depuis 2013. To help Canadians feel more confident about their future, we strengthened the Canada Pension Plan to help workers today and for generations to come. Thanks to the trust that Canadians placed in us, we're able to help 900,000 seniors through increases to the Guaranteed Income Supplement. We helped students get ahead with increases to Canada student grants. We cut taxes for small businesses while making sure that the wealthiest pay their fair share. We're helping more people find a safe and affordable place to call home with the first ever national housing strategy. And we're working with provinces, territories, and cities to ensure a stable housing market. We're giving more children the best possible start in life through investments in early learning and childcare. We now have agreements in place with 9 provinces and territories to help create more of the high-quality, affordable childcare spaces we know that Canadian families need, tailored to their local realities. And think about the fact that the vast majority of single moms receiving the Canada Child Benefit make less than $60,000 a year and now get an average of about $9,000 in total benefits tax-free each year. Over the last year, Mr. Speaker, we've really seen these investments pay off. The economy, the Canadian economy, is doing well, remarkably well. Over the last 2 years, hardworking Canadians have created nearly 600,000 new jobs, most of them full-time. Unemployment rates are near the lowest that we've seen them in 40 years. Mr. Speaker, our plan is working because Canadians are working.
Yeah.
Aujourd'hui, le Canada mène les pays du G7 en matière de croissance économique et les Canadiens ont confiance en leur avenir, que ce soit pour réduire leurs dettes, épargner pour acheter leur première maison ou retourner aux études pour avoir la formation nécessaire pour un nouvel emploi. C'est pourquoi nous pouvons investir dans les priorités des Canadiennes et Canadiens tout en améliorant de façon continue notre résultat financier. We know that there are challenges in the immediate term, and we're responding to those challenges. We know that businesses are concerned about the outcome of NAFTA talks and tax changes in the United States. We'll be vigilant in making sure Canada remains a great place to invest, create jobs, and do business. And we'll do this in a responsible way, carefully, letting evidence and not emotion guide our decisions. At the same time, we need to stay focused on our long-term goal of building an economy that works for everyone. With a strong and growing economy in place, we believe that now is the right time to focus on the deeper challenges that hold our economy and our people back. That means making sure that every Canadian has a real and fair chance to work, to contribute to our economy, and to succeed. It's important not just as a matter of fairness, but as a way to ensure Canada's long-term growth. For the first time in our history, there are now more Canadians aged 65 and older than there are people under the age of 15. That presents a real challenge. As seniors leave the workforce, we need to think about who will fill the gap. We believe that Canada's future success rests on making sure that every Canadian has an opportunity to work and to earn a good living from that work. And that includes Canada's talented, ambitious, and hard-working women. I'd like to tell you a story, Mr. Speaker, about one such woman. Her name's Joan. I met Joan a few weeks ago at Algonquin College. Encouraged by her daughter, Joan went back to school after raising her family. When she first enrolled in school, she thought that she was going to study event planning. But when she got there, she changed her mind because she wanted to pursue a trade and wants to become an apprentice plumber. Now, Joan didn't see herself at first getting into the trades, and she'll be the first choice to tell you that that choice took some of her friends by surprise. But she also feels that it's her true calling. It's work that she's good at, it's work that she wants to do, and she's never looked back. Now, I mention Joan because it's people like her who have the courage to try new things, to forge new paths that make our economy strong and guarantee its future. Over the last 40 years, the rising number of women participating in our workforce has accounted for about a third of our economic growth. That means a better standard of living for all Canadians, thanks to the hard work of women like Joan, who entered or re-entered the workforce. C'est grâce à ces femmes et à leur contribution à l'économie que le revenu des ménages est maintenant plus élevé, que moins d'enfants vivent dans la pauvreté et que tous les Canadiens sont dans une meilleure situation. At the same time, for as much progress as we've seen, there continue to be persistent barriers that hold too many women back. A few weeks ago, the Prime Minister issued a challenge to the world's business leaders to hire, promote, and retain more women. As he said, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. We just need to do the math. On average, women earn just 69 cents for every dollar earned by men, even though about 3/4 of young women have a post-secondary certificate or degree. Even women who graduate from high-demand fields like science, technology, engineering, and math earn about $9,000 less per year than their male peers. It's an important issue, Mr. Speaker, that we need to get at. It's not right, and it's not smart either. We know that diversity in the workforce boosts productivity and profitability, and studies have shown that increasing gender diversity alone leads to more growth. According to the Centre for International Governance Innovation, a 1% increase in gender diversity means about a 3.5% bump in revenue for those companies that actively seek to hire more women. And results are even better when women are in leadership positions. When women hold leadership positions, companies see stronger financial results. They see more innovation and more effective decision-making at the board level. And I can tell you from personal experience, our cabinet is stronger, our government is stronger, and Canadians are better served because half of the cabinet ministers that we have, the people around the table, are strong, intelligent, and effective women. That's why this House has passed amendments that will require federally incorporated corporations to make annual disclosures about the diversity of their senior management teams and boards of directors. We need to think about what equality can mean for Canada. McKinsey Global Institute estimates that by taking steps to advance women's equality, such as employing more women in technology, boosting women's participation in the workforce, Canada could add about $150 billion to its economy by 2026. And RBC estimates that if Canada had a completely equal representation of women and men in our workforce, we could have increased the size of our economy by 4% last year. 4%. When I draft budgets, I fight for every decimal point of growth. Even reaching half that goal, boosting our economy by 2%, would be hugely significant. It would mean more middle-class jobs, more Canadians who have money to pay their bills or save for retirement. Alors, qu'allons-nous faire? Comment allons-nous nous assurer que plus de femmes et de filles puissent être autonomes et aider leurs familles, tout en contribuant à notre croissance économique? Well, first, by making progress when it comes to equal pay for work of equal value. In this budget, the government's taking an historic and meaningful step by moving forward with proactive pay equity legislation in federally regulated sectors. Mr. Speaker, we know that we can't make this necessary change happen for all Canadian women overnight, but what we can do is lead by example. We're trying to encourage all employers to reflect on the way in which work done by women has been too often undervalued and take action to close the gender wage gap and also improve their business prospects. Second, we need to recognize that some of this gap is due to the fact that childcare and caregiving duties in general fall disproportionately on women. In this budget, we're offering a use it or lose it incentive to encourage both parents in a two-parent family to share equally in the work of raising their children. With the EI parental sharing benefit, two-parent families who agree to share parental leave could receive an additional 5 weeks of leave, making it easier for women to return to work sooner if they so choose. And when that precious time runs out, we know that families need greater access to quality childcare, affordable childcare, which is why we've already invested more than $7.5 billion in early learning and childcare, which will create up to 40,000 new subsidized spaces over the next 3 years while making existing spaces more affordable. Troisièmement, nous devons faire plus pour avoir plus de femmes en position de gestion et de leadership. And so we're answering the call from members of the Canada-United States Council for Advancement of Women in taking a comprehensive approach to helping women entrepreneurs so that they can scale up their businesses, create jobs, and access the mentorship and the capital they need to take their businesses to the next level. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we know that we can't push for equality without confronting some difficult truths. Movements like Me Too and Time's Up have shed light on disturbing situations and behaviors that too often go unreported. So to better support those who've been victims of sexual harassment in the workplace, we'll boost legal aid funding across the country so that victims we want to make sure that victims can better understand their rights and get the help they need. I'd like to add, Mr. Speaker, that the work that we're doing to increase the participation of women in our economy and our society can be seen across our entire budget. No budget decision was taken without being informed by what we call gender-based analysis plus. I want to thank the Minister for the Status of Women for her help in making this possible. Now, we firmly believe that this must not be a one-time event. It must be how all future budgets are made. So we'll be seeking to introduce new legislation to make this a permanent part of the federal budget-making process. And we're going to make Status of Women a full department in the Government of Canada.
Bravo.
Avec ce budget, nous doublons la mise sur notre plan d'investissement dans la classe moyenne et dans ceux qui travaillent pour en faire partie. Nous y arriverons en renforçant les programmes qui ont le plus grand impact sur la vie des gens et en les rendant plus faciles à obtenir. That includes the new Canada Workers Benefit, a strengthened, more accessible, and more generous replacement for the working income tax benefit. The Canada Workers Benefit will allow low-income workers to take home more money while they work, encouraging more people to join the workforce and stay in the workforce, and offering real help to more than 2 million Canadians.
Bravo.
At the same time, we'll make it easier for people to access the benefit that they deserve by making this benefit more generous and by automatically giving the benefit to all those that qualify. Will help lift about 70,000 more Canadians out of poverty. As I mentioned earlier, we've taken steps to strengthen the Canada Child Benefit so that the benefit it delivers keeps pace with the cost of living. We're also continuing to make investments that will help people in times of change, whether they're entering the workforce for the first time, retraining for a new job, or planning for retirement. We're making additional investments in our ambitious innovation and skills plan, including targeted help for women in the trades like Joan and for newcomer women looking to find meaningful work. And we're also taking steps to ensure that our tax system is fair for all Canadians. We can't have an economy that works for everyone if everyone doesn't pay their fair share. That's why we've given the Canada Revenue Agency $1 billion in our first budgets to crack down on tax cheats and offshore tax havens. And with every dollar we invest, we expect $5 in recovered revenue. It's about fairness, Mr. Speaker. We're also making sure that the small business tax rate, on track to fall to 9%, the lowest among G7 countries, is available only to small businesses that want to invest, grow, and create more jobs. We're changing the rules for the top 2 or 3% of private corporations because the wealthiest Canadians should not be able to use private corporations to pay less tax than the middle class. Mr. Speaker, by making smart investments today, the kind that give more people a real and fair chance at success, we can build a forward-looking economy for Canada, one that responds to the needs of a changing world, one that will give the young students at Rose Avenue Public School a real chance to grow and to shine in jobs they're qualified for and excited to have. As the Perimeter Institute's Neil Turok says, it's our curiosity, courage, creativity, and a collaborative spirit that leads us to innovate. That pushes us to create the new technologies that improve our daily lives, make us healthier, drive our economy, and move our country forward. To foster that spirit of innovation and help build the new industries and jobs that our economy will rely on in future years, we'll make significant new investments in Canada's scientists and researchers to make sure that they have the funding and the support required to do their work. The Fundamental Science Review, led by Dr. David Naylor and engineered by our Minister of Science, told us that to advance Canadian businesses and Canada's long-term competitiveness, we need to invest in the people behind the big new ideas. Well, that's exactly what we're doing in this budget, Mr. Speaker. Budget 2018 represents the single largest investment in fundamental and discovery research in Canadian history. But more than that, we'll make sure that the new money for research supports the next generation of researchers so that we can build a science community that looks more like Canada, more diverse, with a greater number of women. Our government also believes that the most important way in which our future needs to be better than our past has to do with the relationship between Canada and Indigenous peoples. Together, we're working to improve the quality of life for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nations people in Canada. This budget invests in new tools to help nations rebuild, to accelerate self-determination and self-government based on the recognition of Indigenous rights, so that our shared future is one where Indigenous peoples are in control of their own destiny, making their own decisions about their future. To that end, we're making new investments that will accelerate work to deliver clean, safe drinking water to more Indigenous communities ahead of schedule. We've already lifted 52 long-term boil water advisories, and Mr. Speaker, we're on track to have all others eliminated by March 2021. We're making investments that will help create better opportunities for Indigenous peoples to find and keep good, well-paying jobs, that will build more safe and affordable housing in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nations communities, and that will give better child and family service support with a special focus on prevention so that Indigenous children are not taken from their families and their communities. To further the important work of reconciliation, we're also investing in the Gord Downey and Shawnee Wenjack Fund to promote cross-cultural dialogue, create places and spaces dedicated to reconciliation, so that more Canadians can be part of building a new and better relation with Indigenous peoples. Comme le dit souvent le Premier ministre, lorsqu'il s'agit de renouvellement de la relation entre le Canada et les peuples autochtones, nous avons la responsabilité de faire mieux et d'en faire plus. Ce budget nous aidera à assumer cette responsabilité au profit des femmes, des hommes et des enfants autochtones, ainsi que de tous les Canadiens. Mr. Speaker, today's budget is for all Canadians across our country. To bring people and communities together will increase funding for multiculturalism, provide new funding to ensure the success of Black Canadians, and consult on a new national anti-racism approach to combat discrimination in our country. To help more people find an affordable place to call home, we're working on innovative solutions, like the Rental Construction Financing Initiative that will build an additional 14,000 new rental units across the country. To safeguard Canadians' privacy and protect both our digital economy and our country, we're making an over $750 million investment in cybersecurity in this country. To help families and communities being devastated by the opioid crisis, we'll make investments of $230 million, including to provide additional emergency funding for provinces and territories so people can access evidence-based treatment services and get the help that they need. Afin d'aider les travailleurs des industries saisonnières, comme la pêche et le tourisme, nous chercherons à régler le problème du trou noir en aidant les familles à joindre les deux bouts jusqu'au début de la prochaine saison de travail. Bravo. Together with our provincial partners, we'll protect forestry jobs by stopping the invasive spread of spruce budworm in Atlantic Canada. Across the country, we'll make new investments to support safe and accessible small craft harbours, essential to Canada's fishery industry and coastal communities. Le gouvernement du Canada en fera plus pour appuyer les communautés de langue officielle en situation minoritaire et pour assurer le dynamisme et la vigueur de la francophonie canadienne. Bravo. Bravo. And Mr. Speaker, we'll create jobs in regions and rural communities across Canada and provide tailored support for women entrepreneurs through investments in our regional development agencies. ACOA, l'Agence de développement économique pour les régions de Québec, CanNor, FedDev, FedNor, and Western Economic Diversification. Bravo. Et Monsieur le Président, nous en ferons plus aussi pour aider les personnes vulnérables de la planète grâce à de nouveaux investissements, les plus importants depuis plus d'une décennie dans l'aide internationale, y compris un soutien accru aux femmes et aux filles du monde dans le cadre de la politique d'aide internationale féministe du Canada. Now, Mr. Speaker, there rest challenges in our country. Today, at least 1 in 10 Canadians cannot afford the prescription drugs that they need. And every year, over 1 million Canadians are forced to give up food and heat in order to afford their medicines. To address this, we've created an advisory council on the implementation of national pharmacare, to be headed by Dr. Eric Hoskins, with a mandate His team will have a mandate to study, evaluate, and ultimately recommend options on a path forward on pharmacare that puts Canadians first. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this budget recognizes something that every Canadian understands, that our quality of life and our present and our future prosperity is deeply connected to the environment in which we live. The extraordinary beauty of Canada's parks, nature, and wild spaces, these are central to our identity as Canadians. I will say that for my family, it was the chance to witness firsthand the majestic beauty of Canada's north. We've all had experiences like these, Mr. Speaker, whether it's camping with our families, going for a quiet hike alone in the woods. How many of us have gone ice fishing with our friends, or learned to swim at the end of a dock in a freezing cold lake? Watched our kids skip rocks on the shore, or play in the leaves on a breezy fall day. These are the experiences that help to define us as Canadians. When we encouraged Canadians to visit our national parks last year, they responded by the millions. Some parks were so busy that they had to turn people away. We saw how popular our free admissions program was, and that's why we decided to make Canada's national parks permanently free. Mr. Speaker, unlike past governments, we know that Canadians deserve more than just good enough when it comes to protecting the land that we love. And so we're helping to deliver one of the largest commitments to conservation in Canada's history, with an investment of $1.3 billion to conserve more land and waters, preserve biodiversity, and protect wildlife in our country. This will include a $500 million investment from the federal government to create a new $1 billion nature fund in partnership with corporate, not-for-profit, provincial, territorial, and other partners. Canada is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and it's up to all of us to help keep it that way. Monsieur le Président, au cours des derniers mois, alors que je traversais le pays en préparation du budget, j'ai eu la chance de rencontrer des Canadiennes et des Canadiens et d'écouter leur histoire. Des histoires de difficultés et de frustration, mais aussi de générosité et d'espoir. Ces histoires m'inspirent et je suis motivé à en faire plus encore pour les aider, la prochaine génération, à se débarrasser des obstacles qui nous freinent depuis trop longtemps. In my life, I'm proud to have 2 young daughters and 2 young men who call me Dad. I was home alone a few weekends ago, and I noticed a new poster hanging over one of my daughter's beds. In bold, handwritten lettering, there was a quote there from Malala that said, "We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. Nous ne pouvons pas tout réussir si la moitié d'entre nous sont retenus." For me, Mr. Speaker, it was a blinding flash of the obvious. She gets it. The next generation gets it. The children at Rose Avenue Junior Public School, they get it too. It's time for the rest of us to catch up. Mr. Speaker, before I got into politics, I worked in the private sector. And I have opportunities now, as Minister of Finance, to meet regularly with Canada's top business leaders and CEOs. And I can tell you that there's not one leader out there who would stand for anything that arbitrarily holds back half the people in their organization. It just doesn't make sense. Yet as a society, we allow it to happen. Not arbitrarily, but systematically. Well, that changes today, Mr. Speaker. With this budget built for all Canadians. With this budget, we're tackling the challenge of equality head-on, asking tough questions and beginning to provide important solutions. We're taking steps to track our progress so that our government and all future governments may be held accountable for that progress. Progress, Mr. Speaker, that I look forward to making in collaboration with all members of this House, including the members of the Finance Committee, and with our colleagues in the Senate. There really is no turning back. The head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, said that equal pay and better opportunities for women were an economic no-brainer. Well, our government agrees. So we'll continue to work hard to show Canada and the world how good we can be, how fair we can be, and how smart we can be. We'll all be better off because of it. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Bravo.